Hello, welcome to the second day of Dirt Rag TV. Today we're focusing on efforts to use bicycles for positive change in third world countries. And it's something that a lot of different people are discovering and have been for some years now, but it's a growing movement to get people the tools they need to help to improve their lives. And of course, as we all know, what better tool than the bicycle? First guest on this little talk show is Jacom and Jock from Project Rwanda. And this started with Tom Ritchie. It was a vision of his, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And how many years ago was it that because it's been a while, right?
It's been about 2 years.
Okay.
A little more than 2 years.
Initially it started with traveling to Rwanda, and we had an article about it in Dirt Rag with some of the wooden bikes that people literally carved out of wood. Not even bicycles, they were like, you know, Drazian scooters, yeah.
Wooden razor scooter.
Wooden razor scooters, yeah, essentially. And your efforts have been to provide bicycles. There's also a race team. Well, tell me, I guess, what are the basic components of the project?
The first component was actually, Tom brought me over there. We did the Wooden Bike Classic, the first Wooden Bike Classic in 2006. Just a couple weeks ago, we finished our third event, and that was to see what Rwanda was like, see what the talent was like over there, do a race, you know, centered around their wooden bike, which was really remarkable. And
I've seen some of the photos of the wooden bikes with the modern road bikes.
It's pretty amazing.
Juxtaposed.
And they still use them all the time, the wooden bikes.
Yeah.
But at the race, we saw a lot of talent, racer talent, and we said, hey, we should do a bike team. And I had no ties in America, and I had some time available. I had no family, so I said, sure, I was a coach here. And I said, sure, I'll go over there and see if I can find some riders that would have some talent. So a couple months later, I packed my bags, got a CompuTrainer with me, and moved to Rwanda, in a little town called Butare, lived with a French family, and just started testing riders.
Wow, that's a hell of a leap. That's were you convinced by Tom's vision, or was it something that was your idea also?
I was there. I spent 11 days, my first trip there, saw Rwanda, saw the people, and also saw the talent. And everybody rides a bike there. I mean, that is their means of transporting goods. It's not a means of normally getting one place to another. It is, they have bikes that have 400 pounds of potatoes or beans or bananas or whatever it is they need to get coffee.
And that's some training. That's some
and
power training.
They had some riders in bikes that were 20, 25 years old, and they were riding them. They had welded parts on them. Nothing really worked properly. 5-speed freewheels that only 2 gears worked on. And they were keeping up with us. They were riding with us. They had strength. So we said, hey, let's get them on some decent bikes. Start training them and give them a chance. I mean, we're just basically just giving them a chance with modern equipment, proper food, and some coaching that has enabled them to reach a much higher level than they've ever had.
And so does the team, it's called a Project Rwanda team, or is it the Rwanda
It's called Team Rwanda. It
team?
has become the national cycling team of Rwanda. We travel, the first year we went 8 weeks here in America, and we have been to quite a few events in Africa, so we travel all throughout Africa under the team, the national team. Okay.
And you said that it's now the #1 sport in Rwanda.
It is the most successful sport in Rwanda. Soccer is still the #1 as far as many people want to play soccer or look at soccer. But we've definitely gotten, in 8 months, we became a 0 nation in cycling to the 4th nation in the continent in the Continental Championships in Cameroon last year. So it has become a contender in African cycling.
That's pretty remarkable. Now tell me about this bike that you have here. I saw that at the Ritchie.
Go ahead, Jacob.
This is the coffee bike. It can carry up to 200 kilos of coffee on the back, although I've seen 220 put on, which scared me, but it works. And I went back a couple months later and the farmer still had the bike and the wheel still spun straight, so it's quite an animal. I've seen live pigs strapped to the back, mom,
Nice.
dad, and the kids going to church or going to the market.
Yeah.
It's been awesome, and what it allows them to do is carry not only more coffee than they could before, but they can move it faster.
Yeah.
So they get it to the washing station earlier, and it fetches them a higher price. And then in the off season, when they're not harvesting, they actually rent the coffee bikes out as taxi bicycles, so it's an additional income source. And this past spring, I was able to go over and film a documentary about a farmer receiving the bike and the benefit it had on him as an individual. And when I went back 2 months later, I found out that he had become the village ambulance, and whenever a kid got sick, he would take the kid and the family to the nearest hospital.
Wow.
And his whole social status had been raised just by this bike,
Wow.
and he was now like the big man in town. And all the other farmers were like, when can we get our coffee bikes? So it's had an amazing impact on the people over there.
So what's your plan to distribute these bikes?
Initially, we were distributing them mostly through coffee cooperatives because it's the coffee bike.
Right.
Coffee is a big deal in Rwanda. It's really helping them recover from the genocide. We're starting to shift towards other industries because potato farmers, taxi bike riders, cattle farmers, they all want it for their individual purposes. So we're starting to diversify and pick out ways to distribute into those areas. And we are doing it on a microfinance level because we found that we like to call it a hand up, not a handout.
Right.
Because there's pride of ownership when they put a little bit of their own money into it.
So in other words, it's like you're are you giving the bicycles away, or is it like a
No,
program where
it's a loan.
They pay you back?
They have to sign a contract. It's varied depending on the co-ops that we've been working with or which industries we've been working with. But it's generally been like over 2 years. They have to pay us back in installments. So, and we found it's actually been pretty successful that way.
Yeah. That's a common theme with, I mean, one of the basic benefits of bicycles in third world countries is being able to get products from farmers to the market faster, in a better condition, and thus get more money for it. Now, the block of wood on the back, or the plank of wood, I should say, is that a common feature? Is that something that...
So actually, Tom's philosophy about the bike is we send it over there. This piece of wood is from America, and it has, as you can see, a couple little brackets on the frame. And it has a lot of options for them to modify it in a way that suits them. So we've found farmers that have attached all sorts of struts and ropes to fit the coffee however
pegs
best.
And back.
Yeah, it has pegs on the back so they can put their feet on it. So it's a very modular design that allows them to sort of adapt it to their individual purposes as opposed to just saying, okay, this is how you have to carry coffee. Because I've seen a bunch of different ways of carrying coffee that we hadn't even thought of on this bike. So.
Do you have a pig bag for it?
A
pig bag
cord.
bungee
bag?
cord?
Yeah, bungee cords. No, it was definitely alive and squealing when it was strapped onto the back.
Imagine
they actually
trying to
cut up tires to strap everything. They don't have bungee cords, obviously.
Yeah, it's like a.
They cut up tires to use. I mean, it is the ultimate land of recycling in Rwanda. Everything is used. You don't see litter. You don't see garbage anywhere. It's either burned or used.
Right.
You have car parts, that engine blocks, or all the anvils over there. The car doors they take apart and make hinges, or they make little kerosene lamps out of them. The upholstery is all taken apart. All the threads are taken apart, and they weave them into baskets with other things.
Yeah.
So everything is used over there, and it's amazing to see what you see on the road that's actually been welded together over 10 years and still works.
Added on and added on.
We've even seen bikes that the spokes were replaced by rebar.
Wow.
So you got some really strong wheels coming out of there.
Well, that's a lesson, I would say, for our culture, for sure. You guys have a website for more information, I would imagine?
ProjectRwanda.org.
.org.
And you get a lot of information on the website.
Okay. And is it something that people can donate? How can people support?
People can support it. They can support, buy a cargo coffee bike for a farmer.
Oh.
They can support the team. There's all sorts of different areas where they can support, and actually it'll go to the
jerseys.
exact place that they want it to go to.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Jacob and Jock, for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back. I'm gonna